Glenda Coles, and this is Tell Us a Story. Griffin Timm, a computer science major at Syracuse University. After studying computer science and computer networking in high school, he became interested in cybersecurity. He was a national competitor in the Future Business Leaders of America 2017 and placed second nationally in the network design presentation event. Today we're going to be talking about all things web, so sussing out what really the deep web, the dark internet is, as well as phishing, so a really interesting topic for many of you. I'm particularly interested in this myself because my current thriller writing project sends characters into the largely unknown by many of us, which is how I first met Griffin at Thrillerfest in New York a few months back. And he's a rock climber as well, something that I've sort of been thinking about myself, which is great for problem solving, so the two fit hand in hand there. So welcome to the show, Griffin Timm.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you on. So let's start and just dive straight in and talk about the other web. People have heard about it but know very little and maybe a little bit scared to venture forward because, I don't know, maybe scared that the FBI will see them do something. So, what is the difference between the web that we know and love and use every day and the other web?
So the web that you interact with each day is what we call the surface web. That's what you can find through like a search engine, and like you Google Facebook and Facebook comes up. That's a surface web website. What we're talking about here is the deep web, and it's stuff that search engines cannot find. Things that exist on the deep web. It's not as bad as you think. Whenever you log into Google, you're actually connecting to the deep web in order to log on. Whenever you're logging onto a secure web page, that's through the deep web. You don't want someone to be able to index your bank account. No. So the deep web exists so that your content is secure. There's also the dark web, which is a part of the deep web. And what's in the dark web is all the bad stuff that you hear about on the news, but it's also good stuff. For the dark web, in order to connect to services that it has, you need like specific software or need to know how to get to it.
So just so that I'm clear then, the deep web is okay. It's just our security for ourselves.
The deep web's okay. Okay. You interact with the deep web each day. You just don't know it.
I didn't know there was even a difference between the dark, the deep, and the... Well, I knew there was obviously the deep. I didn't know the deep web was there, but I knew the dark web was there.
So what you find on the dark web, like when you hear about like the Tor network, that's what's there. You can find botnets, you can find darknet markets, fraud services, hoaxes, all the bad stuff that you hear about. But it's not all bad. Even then, it's not all bad. All the anonymous leaks that you hear about in the news, that's where they come from. People are able to connect to the dark web, staying anonymous, and submit their own reports, their own documents to websites like WikiLeaks or to news affiliates that run dark web websites so that people can post truly anonymously and get information out without it being traced back to them.
Wow, it's a whole new world, literally.
Yeah, it's really great what happens, and it's also very not great in some ways.
So, I mean, just tell us then, what you mentioned Tor. It's the average Joe that's listening to this thinking, well, I've heard of this and I've heard of a Tor, but I don't know what it is. What's a Tor?
So when we are talking about Tor, we're talking about a network of computers that are designed to distribute information across the globe. So in order to access this network, you download this thing called a Tor browser. And it's a special browser, a special piece of software that lets you connect to the dark web, and it helps keep you anonymous and keeps the websites that you're connecting to anonymous. So if you're connecting to a dark web website, you're actually pulling information from a few servers, and your traffic, that request to get the web page, travels around the world just to get a single web page. That's the whole point of the dark web, to be anonymous, and that's part of how they achieve it.
Okay, so now I know some folks, that are in my Facebook newsfeed, people that you would think, well, why would they need to know what Tor is? What would they be using it for? Would that just be for something legitimate, like maybe looking for a price of, a flight without the carrier know that the computer's actually in this country, because prices differ, or used to anyway. Would it be something like that, or what else would they be using a Tor for if it's not to go doing something strange?
Well, what you're talking about there is all surface web, connecting with airlines and figuring out their prices. You can obscure your traffic on the surface web still. There are methods of doing that where it appears when you connect through a VPN that you're in Europe and you're actually in the States or in Auckland. Mm-hmm. However, the dark web, those services aren't normally available because airlines want to try and be able to track you as much as possible. So it's not advantageous to them for the run websites on the dark web. However, there are other social media websites. Facebook runs a dark web website. Twitter runs one, and that helps keep users anonymous if they want to be anonymous on these social media sites. Right. So is that...
I'm just trying to understand it myself, and for everybody else that has not got your brain power, Griffin. So are you saying when the Facebook use something like the dark web, that's so that only friends can see something, or friends of friends can see something? Is that how they would sort of use it? Does that make sense?
That is one way that you could use it, but it's more for the purposes of if you're running some page, like if you're an activist and you're running a Facebook page supporting your cause, you may not want the information that Facebook contains tracing back to you, like information about your IP address, your MAC address, anything that could identify you. You would connect to it using the dark web, and Facebook wouldn't have that information as readily available. Right. So you may use that if you want to help protect yourself, if you're an activist or some other person, and that can be used for bad purposes. People who are like terrorists, like the group Anonymous, they use the dark web for these purposes.
Okay. So again, just thinking about, say if I wanted to go and do some research, maybe I was writing a thesis on something that you knew was in the deep web. The dark web, not the deep web, the dark web. Then how would I go about looking for, say I was looking at, international drug dealers or something like that, just for an example. What would I do? Without giving me the exact steps, what would I need to know and do?
Well, you'd connect to the Tor network, which is the primary network that the dark web consists of, and then you'd go and try and find a web page that contains the information that you want. So there are websites out there that contain information about how you can connect to these websites, and you can find markets where you can buy illegal drugs. You can figure out what quantities there are. When you're looking at stuff like that, it's anonymizing the person selling it and the person buying it. And you'd negotiate a transfer, but that's how you would connect. You need to know exactly what you're looking for, and you can find information out there that will give you web page addresses. And when I talk about web page addresses on the dark web, you aren't going to find facebook.com. You're going to find a random string of numbers and letters with a .onion after it. And that is going to be the website that you're connecting to. And it's part, again, of obscuring where that website actually is hosted.
Okay, so I'm guessing then it's a great place to hide your crime if you're committing something like you're selling drugs or
Yes.
far worse things that I won't even go into. So if I just decided let's have a go, let's go and see what I can find, and I stumbled into some of these places. First of all, can I stumble in, or are there some pretty strict gatekeepery type things on the more um, what's the word I'm looking for? Nastier things.
Well, it's pretty straightforward. There's no barriers that you're going to really hit depending on what you're looking for. However, it's a very intentional act to connect to the dark web and, as you say, stumble upon these websites, because first you need to download the application that you need to use. Then you need to deliberately find the website that you're looking for and connect to it.
Right. So I'm not going to stumble across something and say, "Oh, I didn't really mean to go there."
That can happen on some of the darknet markets. Let's say you're looking for drugs and you find a listing for a hitman.
Wow.
That that can happen. But again, you're already looking at things that would be illegal to transact, but it wouldn't. You would still be stumbling upon things that you weren't looking for.
Okay. So a red flag's going to go up to the FBI.
No, normally not.
Because I'm guessing law
unless-
enforcement do sort of troll and I guess they can't really police it in the same way as they can police the regular land and internet, but I'm guessing there's also a fair few people undercover seeing what's going on out there. There must be some way that they can use their powers.
Yes. Law enforcement does regularly look at the sites that you may connect to. Part of the safety in using it is the anonymity of the parties involved in a transaction. And that's part of why people use the dark web. Even though law enforcement may be able to look at it, they may be able to see a transaction happen, but they don't know anything about that transaction.
Because everything's anonymous.
Yes. However, have you heard of the Silk Road?
I have, yes.
The Silk Road was a darknet market that specialized in trading drugs. The FBI, combined with several other law enforcement agencies from around the world, were able to discover where the Silk Road was hosted. And they ended up arresting one person, the person that was responsible for maintaining the site. But beyond that, no one else was incriminated. So the FBI only has so much power. They were barely able to discover where Silk Road was being hosted and figure out who was behind it. So that's an example of the anonymity protects people to a certain point. You just have to be smart about it, and this guy wasn't as smart as he could have been.
But I'm guessing that, a Silk Road's gone now, I'm assuming. There must be something similar back in its place. Just a little bit tighter.
There has been a couple darknet markets have cropped up, but they are nowhere near as big as the original Silk Road. However, that may change in the coming years. The Silk Road bust kind of scared people away for a while from transacting in whatever they would transact.
So, it's an incredibly deep subject, and I'm sort of wrecking my brains thinking where to go next because there's so many little tangents my mind's going off at. I've never actually tried to get in myself and have a look around purely because I'm a bit scaredy cat, really, and I sort of thought, oh, if I go somewhere where I shouldn't, there's going to be red and blues flashing in my yard as people come to take me away.
The Fed is not going to come knocking at your door just for connecting to the dark net or the dark web.
The dark web.
And that's because, one, you haven't really committed any illegal act by connecting to it and looking around.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So as long as you're just looking around, you're fine. You're completely legal.
So if I am a criminal, if I have criminal intent, or just go back to my thesis idea, so I want to find some blurb, and put something together for my thesis, and I'm really interested in international drug dealers. Can I sort of get into these chat rooms myself, or do I need an invitation, or how does it work to get in and sort of pretend you're somebody, not so that I'm going to do anything, but just so I can gather intel?
So it's kind of like being a spy, what you're trying to get at. You, as you start off, you are in open public chat rooms, and you're just building online credibility. And if you want to get into some other chat rooms that may be a bit more involved, well, then you may need an invite. And you're only going to get that through building reliability.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that relates to a spy is a spy can't just hop straight into the director of the FBI. He has to build credit over time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to go and start connecting with these chat rooms, getting more and more involved, it takes some time. You can't just hop right in.
No. So how do you do that then? I mean, I've heard of people having to show proof of what it is that they're into themselves. So again, if I'm talking drug dealer that, I don't know, maybe that I've bought drugs in the past, would that be enough? How do you get proof?
I can't answer that question because I've never been in the situation of being asked to show proof like that. What I can imagine is that you're proving yourself through a certain set of information that has been established about you and working from there.
Right, okay. So it's not as easy as you might think then. You don't just go hurtling in and say, can I join your group?
No.
Good. Well, that's good.
Yes, it is very good. The groups involved tend to be a little bit twitchy about who joins their groups. And understandably so, because of the Fed possibly being involved.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I'm guessing, I mean, I've heard, and a lot of this could just be a rumor, I don't know, just from my own bit of research, is that some of the groups, everybody self-incriminates everybody else, so they have to sort of prove that they've done X, Y, and Z so that no one's going to rat on them because they're all in the same boat, they've all done it. Have you heard that sort of thing?
Yes, I have. So groups, like let's say we have a hacking group that is using the dark web to coordinate their acts. Mm-hmm. They may only go by their hacker name. Beyond that, each hacker doesn't know anything else about each other.
Right. Because
that protects them. There are purposes for that, for limiting the spread of information, because the more information is out there, the more vulnerable it is, which is why things like social security numbers are such a hot button topic, why phone numbers are, you're constantly getting phone numbers from sources you don't even know. That's why, because of the dissemination of information, and like this hacking group may try to prevent how information can spread.
Wow, okay. Man, my mind's going all sorts of directions. So let's just change tack a little bit and talk about phishing, and not the one with the rod and pole, the fish on the end, but actual computer phishing. Tell us a bit about that. What does that entail and why do they do it?
So phishing is the act of trying to get information from someone. Mm-hmm. So a phishing ad, like an ad may be trying to fish information like, oh, enter in this lottery to win a free cruise. That's one that we've all heard before. So someone may be trying to fish a social security number, your name. It's all about information at that point. Because for at least social security number for me in the States, I don't know if you have an equivalent in where you are. Mm-hmm. But what someone can do with that information is compromise your financial stability. So let's say I am a fisher, and I'm in a chat room with you, and we transition over into maybe starting a business together. But in reality, I'm just trying to fish information from you.
Mm-hmm.
You may give me certain information, the equivalent of your social security number, your name, your address. With that information, what I can go and do is take money out as a loan in your name.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of getting money.
All right.
So if I take out a loan, then that money's mine, but the fiscal responsibility then falls on you.
Even though you've had nothing to do with it. Mm.
Yeah. So, like, that's why identity theft is such a big problem, because people go and buy cars in your name. People go and take out a loan from a bank in your name. That's what phishing is about. Phishing information, and it's not even just limited to personal information like that in which you can be compromised. It may be trying to fish information about the company that you work at and trying to get an insider's view so that you can trade advantageously on the markets. It may be to gain information about a person that you may be associated with so that something may be done to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what phishing is about, compromising the security of someone or something.
And it's big business because you see spammy emails with links in all the time, and I'm guessing that's what many of them are.
Mm-hmm. That's what most of those emails are, phishing. Trying to fish that information which can normally personally compromise you.
So if you find that you've accidentally clicked on something that you shouldn't have, what's going to be happening? Is something going into the back of your computer and screwing things up, like a Trojan?
That's a good question. So especially with the ads that you see on web pages, some of them activate even just by hovering over them for a millisecond.
Wow.
And what can happen is then the ad causes you to connect to a web page which can initiate a download.
Mm-hmm.
And that download, or it can execute a script and essentially downloads a program to your computer which is malicious. At which point this malicious program can do a few things, and these are the most common things. It can monitor your computer and send back information about your computer, about you, and basically fish information from you. It can also encrypt your computer, which is where some of the big cyber attacks have been coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can try to compromise whatever network it's in even more, which is how you get big compromised computer networks. Like there was a hospital in the United States that was all its computers were locked down and encrypted, and they couldn't do anything about it. These are examples of clicking on something bad. So if you do that, then you need to immediately take precautions to ensure that your computer is clean. Immediately disconnect your computer from the internet, run virus scans, and that will generally catch most of what you have downloaded, but you just got to be careful.
Okay, and most people now do have some level of security on their computers, but I'm guessing that there'll be some out there that have let it lapse, or I don't know if it's the same on a Mac. I use a Mac, and I know I don't have the same sort of updates as I used to have on a PC. And it's a bit scary, really, to know that someone could be turning on and off your video cam or watching your keystrokes or anything else. So I'm guessing in those instances, the best thing to do then is to go and take it to the computer guys and say, clean it up.
Yes, you can do that. And you can also take steps by yourself so that you aren't paying $50 or so to have them do something that is relatively easy to do. Run a few scans. It's pretty easy. Here's an interesting thing for you. What type of program do you think is the best type of program that will improve your security?
I have no idea.
An ad blocker.
Ah, right.
Using an ad blocker in your web browser can stop a lot of these malicious attacks and stop them from phishing information from you. It's that easy. It stops you from connecting the pages you don't want to connect to. And if you're generally going to credible sites but are running ads, it makes those credible sites even more safer than they are.
Right, that's good advice. I think I'll do that. So what else? You mentioned fraud services and hoaxes and all that sort of thing. That's going back into the dark web. The dark internet, I'm assuming, is the same as the dark web, is it?
They are interchangeable terms, yes.
Okay, all right. So I think we've covered the deep web, which we all know now exists, and we just don't know we're using it, and that's quite okay. It's the dark web and the dark internet is the goodies and a lot of baddies.
Yes.
Okay, well that's been really quite enlightening. My mind, like I say, is buzzing. Is there anything else that you think would be of interest to the listeners today, Tim? Griffin, sorry.
Yes. There is one little story from the dark net, and it's sometimes puzzle makers put very complex and hard to solve puzzles up on the internet, and in order to make sure they aren't found out as the maker of the puzzle and therefore having people trying to get the solution from them, puzzle makers have put puzzles on the dark web and for people to solve. So again, that's one of those good things about the dark web. It's just solving puzzles.
Yeah.
That's another use of it.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just thinking of the that famous murder with the puzzles that was never solved. Gosh, what was it called? No, it's gone. Somebody will be screaming at the podcast, listening to this in their car, or thinking about the famous murders with the puzzles that was never solved. Anyway, I'll think of it when you've gone. But never mind. So, Griffin, where can people find you if they want to talk more or offer you a job or whatever they might want to talk about?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Griffin Timm, and that would be the best way of finding me. You can also email me at getimm@syr.edu.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's been really great. Thank you, Griffin. I've enjoyed every minute of that, learned something new, and I'm sure that our listeners are probably thinking exactly the same. My goodness, I never knew such stuff existed and what you could use
and there's
it for.
there's even more information out there. All you got to do is open up Google.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much once again. So I'll say over and out.
Over and out.
You've been listening to Tell Us a Story. Why not subscribe or rate us next time you're on iTunes?